Let's get to the Sunday action starting at 1 p.m., 10 a.m. Pacific time, Sam. The Los Angeles Chargers add to the New England Patriots.
Yes.
My wife just keeps saying San Diego. She said it to me like 20 times yesterday.
That must be helpful.
No, it screwed me up on camera last week.
Yeah.
I screwed up and said San Diego. She's like, I will never change. She will never stop. By the way, I'm also, we're waiting for baby number 3.
Yeah.
I want to make sure she hasn't. It's very close.
Right.
It's very close. I'm just waiting. So if I have to leave the podcast, you're just
going to monologue the last, the last 2 games.
That'd be great. I could
do it.
Oh man, you would just pull out every bad grade and talk about all the worst players.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's what Sam's game recaps would do. Look how I know the Patriots scored 41, but did you see how bad their right tackle was?
Here's everybody that sucked today.
Yeah,
it'd be fun.
The
I'm actually rooting for that now.
Defense was great, but this guy didn't get any pressure.
Yeah, I'm actually rooting for that now.
So I'll just wait. I've got my phone on. I'm going to keep it on the table just in case. I don't want to miss.
That's fine.
We're on call. Baby number 3, little guy's on his way soon.
Yeah.
So this
is questionable timing for
it's horrible timing.
PFF baby.
No. So she's due the day after the Super Bowl.
Right.
So on one hand, it's like, all right, you're due. You set a due date that's like the day after the season. That's great. The season's over. But she also usually, historically, with our 2 babies, is like a week early.
Yeah.
A bye week.
Plus, it's not like...
I timed it up perfectly for the bye week.
No, because these things aren't like, accurate. You can't say, well, I'm a day after it's important, so we're good. You have to factor in the idea that's like a give or take a couple of weeks either side.
Yeah. Maybe it should have been June.
Or April, say.
No, April's the draft.
After the draft, see.
That's too much. Not enough buffer room there.
May or June.
June's safe.
Yeah.
June is safe.
Which
next
you didn't
time,
do that.
Next time we'll plan it out better.
Yeah.
All right. So the Chargers had to travel to New England.
Right.
1 p.m. game. Somebody did tweet at me. He's like, and you too, I think, right? Hey, this is the balance you guys were talking about. This New England offense, right? They had the short passing game. They had the running attack. They had enough downfield passes just to keep San Diego honest, or Los Angeles. See, she did it. She did it. She's in my head calling it San Diego.
Yeah. So
Los Angeles Chargers. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, this was the most embarrassing performance of the playoffs. The Chargers are just completely... They were worked. I mean, this was a complete disaster. And it wasn't just... It was everything, right? They got beaten physically. They got beaten schematically. And they had no business being on the field. The score... What did the score end up being?
41-28.
41-28. Sounds vaguely close, right? This was basically 41-7, and then there was some late scores just to make it look a little less embarrassing. But this was a disaster.
Phillip Rivers has like a legitimate Hall of Fame case, given his stats, and even though he doesn't have the Hall of Fame moment, because he threw 3 playoff touchdowns here. He did pad his playoff stats for his Hall of Fame case just a little bit here.
Yeah, but we're talking... So the real issues were essentially... This game was really won in the trenches, right? My concern with the Chargers team for a while was this idea that the offensive line would come back to haunt them at some point in the most important situation in the postseason.
Right.
Much like it did for the Minnesota Vikings a year ago, and that's kind of what happened to their offense. Rivers was under pressure, 24 out of 53 dropbacks, which again is right in that ballpark of forget about it, it's not going to happen. Sam Tevi, the biggest disaster on that line, as we talked about, allowed 8 hurries. That's quite a large number. Every single member of the offensive line surrendered at least 3 hurries on an individual level. So they were just completely outclassed on that side of the ball. And then the other idea was what would happen to their defense. Were they going to run the same thing that they ran the week before with this 7 defensive back system, the no linebacker deal, and they were just blown off the ball by the Patriots, because whilst they also have a relatively run-heavy offense at times, the difference between them and the Baltimore Ravens is that they have this stable of monster run-blocking offensive linemen up front that will just drive you the hell off the ball. And where we were saying that one of the things that made this system function wasn't just the kind of schematic wrinkle of it, but it was the fact that their defensive linemen all won their one-on-one battles up front.
That was what it was.
This didn't happen this week. They got destroyed by...
meaning the Chargers last week against the Ravens. It wasn't the fact that they had 7 defensive backs. It was that...
Well, that was part of it, right? But that only functioned if the defensive linemen all won as well.
Right, because Justin Jones was really good. Melvin Ingram was really good. Darius Philon, Damian Square, all of their big defensive linemen played extremely well against the Ravens. Complete opposite yesterday. New England won that battle when it came to the run game. And then from a pass rush standpoint, the Patriots, even though there's a handful of games through Brady's career where you're like, oh, the Giants got to him twice and the Broncos got to him in the AFC Championship, they do have the ability to use the short passing game to slow down good pass rushing teams. So they were able to slow down Bosa and Ingram and Derwin James. They're the great pass rushers that the Los Angeles Chargers employ.
Yes, I mean, among the impressive run blocking grades for the Patriots were Trent Brown, Joe Thuney, David Andrews, Shaq Mason, and Rob Gronkowski. Gronk turned back up and had a monster game as a run blocker. So that's 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen, your primary blocking skill position player, and the 5th guy wasn't bad. He just didn't dominate the way the other 4 guys did. So again, all of their run blockers essentially won their battles, and the Chargers, they were getting blown off the ball up front, and because of that, the guys on the back end didn't have the same opportunities as they had a week ago, which is essentially unobstructed runs through to the running back, to the ball carrier. This time they actually had to navigate traffic, and that didn't go well either.
And you also have, the Patriots also have enough eye candy, too, in their run game. They don't just run one run concept.
Yep.
They run wham and power and just straight gap, and they run some zone, outside zone type stuff. And then they have all of the jet sweep game with Cordarrelle Patterson and Julian Edelman. And you don't know. They had one play that got called back with Patterson where it was like 2 misdirections before the Patterson end around. That was a really nice play, too. So they've got some creativity to it, and they're making their blocks. So that makes it tough to stop. Then you have James White catching the ball 15 times out of the backfield. And that was the other part about the Chargers' game plan, right? When Brady has gone up against these cover 3, cover 1 teams, all of this Pete Carroll tree, I'm not trying to say he's figured them out, but he's had a lot of success. He had success against Seattle in the Super Bowl, Atlanta in the Super Bowl after they figured it out. Atlanta did adjust a little bit. They played a lot of man. Right. But these teams when they play a ton of just their base cover 3 zone, he generally picks them apart. And he's like, all right, I'll take this short thing. I'll take this short thing. Here's a seam pass.
Yeah,
short seam. I mean, that's what it is.
I don't even think it's a case of he's figured them out. It's just that what he does well is the exact thing you need to be good at to have success against those defenses. So remember way back the Peyton Manning versus the Seahawks defense, Super Bowl. All right, the big question going into that was that the way you beat these defenses is you have to be patient and take what they give you and essentially kill them with 1,000 paper cuts. That has been great. Like, nobody has been better than Tom Brady at doing that throughout his career. He is probably the most patient quarterback of all time in that he doesn't need to beat you with a big pass. If it takes, 60 pass attempts of 5 yards, he will do that all day long and not get frustrated. Most other quarterbacks will reach a point where even if that's working, they just snap. They can't take it anymore, and they've got to go deep. It's like it's just an inbuilt twitch with them, and eventually that's their undoing because they go crazy, and either they have a couple of incompletions deep and they turn the ball over on not on downs, but they have to kick it away, or they throw a costly mistake interception because of that. But that's the thing that beats them. They can't live with this idea of having to win by 1,000 paper cuts, whereas Brady, that's what he lives doing. So he carves these teams apart, and the only way of preventing that is to change what you do and go to a more aggressive man coverage kind of scheme, which he does struggle against comparatively. And again,
comparatively, right.
And the Chargers didn't do that, and it cost them again. You can't.
We'll see more man with Kansas City next week, I believe.
Yeah, it was as impressive as their kind of game plan was to foil the Baltimore Ravens the week before. This was equally as impressively inept to do essentially nothing to change the thing won't work heading into the game.
It included a poor miscommunication on Brady's touchdown pass to Philip Dorsett in the red zone. But to your point, Brady threw the ball 44 times, no turnover-worthy plays. I mean, that's his game where they say, look, we're going to run they ran the ball a lot too, but it was still a pass-heavy game. You're putting the ball in his hands and just saying, make good decision after good decision, find the open man over and over and over again, and move the ball.
I mean, this was your exemplary.
Exemplary.
I don't know what I was going for there. This is your great example.
Exemplary.
Of balance, right?
Yes.
They had balance in the run game and the pass game. They did everything. The Chargers defense basically couldn't stop anything all the way through the course of this game. The Patriots were just scoring at will in the first half. The game was done at halftime.
Yeah, the Patriots didn't really have the downfield passing game, but they were 4 for 5 at the intermediate level, 12, 19 for 22 on 0 to 9 yard passes. So they got the short stuff, and they had a bunch of behind the line of scrimmage
Right.
completions.
And again,
as well.
balance is not, it doesn't have to be everything.
No,
right? You don't
just have answers.
Right. You don't need everything if they're not taking away the things you are doing. So you just need enough balance. Again, you just need enough balance to keep the defense off balance. And that doesn't necessarily have to include the deep ball if they're not stopping any of the stuff you're doing that doesn't involve the deep ball.
Neil sent me an image. I don't know if this is live.
Okay.
Travarius Ward with a 74.6 special teams grade. This is breaking news from Neil Hornsby, who I know is watching live. Thank you, Neil, for being one of our live watchers. He sent me this video. Travarius Ward from Kansas City, the guy we were talking about earlier, 10 special teams tackles.
Yesterday? Or not yesterday? Saturday?
No,
whenever
this
it was.
season.
Right.
This season.
I was going to say, because that would be a hell of a breaking news. If we
So
were
there's
breaking
a nugget.
news
There's
that
a
he had
nugget
10 special teams tackles in one game, that would be outstanding.
There's a nugget for the listeners here. So just to wrap up this Chargers Patriots game, the Chargers, yes, they scored 28 points. That was not indicative of how well they played. The passing game was made very difficult for Phillip Rivers. That was the other matchup coming in. We said Phillip Rivers has been really good this season, but 22nd in the NFL in completion percentage against man coverage this year. And the Patriots play more man coverage than any team in the NFL. And it did have that feel of like, wow, he's throwing the ball away a lot. Passes are contested. He made a few nice throws in there, because they're tight windows, but just everything felt like it was challenged for the Chargers.
And then the other question was, would the Patriots have a better game plan for stopping Keenan Allen, their number one threat, than the Steelers had, where they basically put linebackers on him all game? The Patriots' answer was to put Stephon Gilmore on him one-on-one all game. Now, when Gilmore was covering Keenan Allen, he was targeted 5 times and had just one catch. Okay, the
busted coverage.
Right, the catch was 43 yards and a touchdown because Gilmore bit on the dig as opposed to what he was actually running. But that's a pretty impressive elimination, essentially, of Keenan Allen from the game plan with one guy, as opposed to letting him destroy you play after play.
And the thing that makes the Patriots system unique, and people always talk about how it's game plan oriented, it's the way they play man coverage. We put it in the system like, oh, they're playing cover 1. So when you play cover 1, it's man coverage across the board, but you have 2 extra defenders, usually a safety, sometimes 2 safeties, sometimes a safety and a linebacker. But it's what New England does with their extra defenders that makes them unique. Because, like when you're playing Madden and you pick cover 1, it's like, all right, this guy's going to cover short middle, this guy's going to cover deep, and that's what those extra guys do. The Patriots take those extra guys and they're like, all right, this time you're going to bracket the slot. This time you're going to bracket Keenan Allen. This time you're going to go watch Antonio Gates. This time it's a short zone. So they move around those extra players. So they play cover 1, but they all have these little nuances and little adjustments to take away those players. This is what makes the matchup with Kansas City so difficult, because how much do you put on Tyreek Hill? How much do you put on Travis Kelce? They have more answers than most of your teams.
Just to contrast the Keenan Allen thing with that Pittsburgh game, against the Steelers, he was targeted 19 times as opposed to 6 total in this game. Had 14 catches as opposed to 2. So and 2 of those incompletions were drops. So he could have destroyed the Steelers for even more than he did.
Wow.
Like, that's the difference between essentially not accounting for him at all.
How many against linebackers?
Against linebackers, we've got 8 targets, not 10 targets against linebackers of any kind, including outside linebackers. Another
10 out of 19 targets.
Another 5 for safeties. Only 4 of those 19 targets came against a cornerback.
Yeah, that's
a problem.
Domination.
Right? That's an issue. That's
an
issue of game planning and not having an answer to what they were doing. Contrast that with what the Patriots did, which is 5 out of his 6 targets were against Gilmore alone. And Gilmore essentially took him away, other than the one play where he goofed.
And just so you know, like if your team, you got a new defensive coordinator coming in and he's a man coverage guy versus a zone coverage guy, the trade-off here is man coverage generally leads to just more difficult passes. The completion percentage is going to be lower, but you're not going to get as many turnovers, whereas a zone-heavy team is going to give up the dink and dunk, but you're going to try to get the turnovers. This game kind of summed that up. Brady, takes the short pass game against the zone defense, but he doesn't turn it over, right? And that's why he's good against this, because he doesn't make bad decisions for the most part. And then the Chargers throw the ball 51 times. Phillip Rivers is under 50%. Every completion is challenged and difficult.
And man coverage has a higher touchdown rate as well, right? Because when it goes bad, it goes bad.
Right. Yep.
So that's your trade-off. You get a lower completion percentage, but you get less.
But you give up more big plays
You
against
give up
man,
fewer turnovers, but you give up more.
Yeah.
You get fewer turnovers, but you give up more big plays because when it does go south, it's like it happened with Gilmore.
But a good man coverage is so frustrating for the offense, and that's why we're saying when Brady and the passing offense for the Patriots has been shut down, it's against those when teams just play that man coverage really well and actually do what the Patriots do defensively against them, and they take those extra defenders, take away the middle, take away Edelman, take away Gronk.
Well, it's because of what we were talking about, right? Brady is the best patient quarterback of all time. He will happily take an easy completion every single play and just accept that it's going to work over the long term. But if you play man coverage, what you're doing is making all of those plays more difficult, and you're actually forcing them to kind of you're forcing them to make bigger plays to have the same offensive production, and it's just harder for a guy who's really good at that. Now, if you're a team who wants the bigger plays anyway, you're more comfortable with that. So if you're one of these quarterbacks that's less patient, that wants to be attacking deeper down the field anyway, you're more comfortable with that scenario and taking the bigger chunk plays than you are with having to carve them up with 5-yard passes all day long.
Yep. So this was the most lopsided game of the weekend. The Patriots tied for second with the most points in the first half of a playoff game. It was my 1999 Jaguars are number one, Sam. They scored 42 against Dan Marino in his last game, and then the Patriots scored 35 yesterday and 35 against Tim Tebow's 2011 Broncos.
Yeah.
So the Patriots tied for second twice in that number. This felt like the one game I said the Colts, Cowboys, and Eagles all have to play like this perfect game, it feels like, to pull the upset. I thought the Chargers had the best chance at an upset, but this was like old school New England.
Same.
Like, you don't come into our house and we're going to beat you in all phases.
But that's why I think this was the most disappointing performance of the weekend because, I mean, the Chargers had a better record than the Patriots over the regular season.
They did.
Right?
Yeah.
They were a good team. Now, okay, they had some flaws that were going to become problems, this offensive line for one, but they got outcoached. This was a terrible performance from a team that went out there and were just playing the wrong game plan almost across the board. And the Patriots, obviously being the Patriots, had the right game plan almost across the board. And they were just beaten off the field before they had a chance to get anything going. So, at least the Colts were beaten up by a better team, but they weren't, crazily exposed from a schematic point of view, right? They were just outfought by a team that was better.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, they at least did the right thing, right? They came up with the right game plan that has been proven to work against the Rams, and the Rams adjusted. Now, maybe if you could make the argument that Dallas, a really great team, would have adjusted to the adjustment and come back against them, but the chances are that just plays back into the Rams' hands because that's what they want to do in the first place. So at least you give Dallas credit for showing up with the right game plan
I agree with that.
The Rams just had an answer for. The Chargers showed up with the wrong game plan and never changed it.
Never adjusted. And Romo was saying, look, you can't sit back. You got to blitz. They only blitzed 7 times on 44 dropbacks, even though the Pats had 70 yards on those. But still, that would be the game plan against this year's Patriots, is maybe be a little bit more aggressive than you would against Brady in the past.